Thanks for joining us. Here we are again. This is Melissa. And I'm Daly, and we're chit-chatting today, continuing with our Love Is from 1 Corinthians 13. And today we're talking about how love protects and how love rejoices in truth. And Melissa, I wanted to ask you, because I really like the picture that you gave of your own umbrella when you talked in your blog on Wednesday about how this was your own little cocoon that you created and how God's protection was always there, but you didn't always have to access it because you already had your own protections. And so I was going to ask you what that looked like for you, like as far as going from the security of having your own smaller little cocoon and then feeling exposed, which I think is really the picture that you painted. So I wanted you to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I think you know very well how real and true that is for me right now. I think when you live in a place, especially we had moved to Charlotte at the age of 22, where I was still developing who I was, what my identity was, who my identity in Christ was, what things were important to me. And so as that was formed and I found like-minded people who supported me, it's like, it is this little cocoon of an umbrella, but it was kind of big. And so because it had been so long, I had, even though that cocoon was small, it had gotten big because of the relationships over time. And I didn't realize how much I had trusted that. I really felt like I had grown. And I don't think this umbrella of protection is a bad thing. I think it's healthy and normal to develop friendships that offer you this sense of they get me, they have my back, they are for me. But being exposed made me realize how challenging it can be to trust. I know God has got this. I know He is protecting me, but not having that tangible reminder in multiple circles every day, it made me feel very vulnerable and exposed that, okay, even little things of what do I do if something happens? What neighbors can I call? Who do I write on my emergency contacts? Like just little things like that I would never have thought about because I had this protection of this group has me, and I relied on them very heavily.
And we do that a lot, I think, especially as moms, like I think in a different way, and as women in a different way, because our needs are a little bit different, maybe because we are more communal by nature.
Right.
And so how important it is when we know and interact in our community, when we are known and interacted with intentionally with those members of our community, and how sometimes God does put us in this place where, because when I met you, I had been pulled out of my little comfort zone in, because I came from Florida. And so that was the whole way that we met was I mean, we went to North Carolina and we were like, hi, like we're here. And so I think it's a both and, where when you remove that cocoon, it feels so, it feels dangerous.
It does.
It feels big. It feels like the world is huge and I am so small here. And now what?
Yes, it does. And I think it is the both and of, we need these tangible protective measures to remind us who we are, to remind us whose we are, to be just daily reminders that are so tangible in our day-to-day life, but also point us to hey, if I fail, if I mess up, if I'm not there to protect you, He's got it. Like God's got it. And it's so much more reliable and so much more trustworthy and so much more a protection done well. Like He can protect in a way that no human can.
So can I ask you a question based on that? So this was my intriguing part. And I guess because I am thinking more of when we have that protective measure and then it's taken away, I think for me, when I moved to North Carolina, when we started becoming friends, I had it was like in Florida, there was, my community was built of convenience. The people that I was exposed to, my kids were really little, so I kind of was thrown into Mother's Day out, and all the, church was our thing. And it was almost like, because we were there, I had this community. And then when I moved to North Carolina, I realized that there was going to have to be some intentional effort on my part. And because of that, I had to be more, I don't want to say particular, because that's not really it. It's almost as if what I needed now was not going to be just placed in my lap. It was like, it got to this place where I had to really put into some sort of tangible way in my head, something in my head that I could delineate, that was, these are the relationships that I know help me, encourage me, move me forward, are supportive. And it really honed down what it looks like to have relationships and friendships with people. And I wonder if that's kind of where
where I am right now, but also I think comes with age. Like, I think as we get older and wiser, and not a specific age, but as you have more understanding of, man, relationship is work. And if I'm going to invest hard and deep in a relationship, I can't do it with 55 people. It's going to be small. We were just laughing. We were talking to some friends over the weekend, and LD, my husband, said, I need like three or four people that know me. Melissa needs like 25. And it was like somewhat a joke, but also this other place of, yeah, I kind of do, but it's not 25 of super in depth. I love a diversity of deep relationships. But that sense of protection and that sense of really knowing does come with deep intentionality. And I'm still in that place of, I'm getting pockets, right? I have pockets of incredible neighbors. I have pockets of, really, it's just incredible neighbors right now. I haven't branched out past that. But
it's 2020.
It's 2020. Yeah. And I do think that I'll have, different places, but I'm still on this, like, having coffee and like, is this going to be a relationship that they're willing to invest into me and I'm willing to invest into them? Is this going to be a relationship where there's honesty and transparency and pushing forward in truth? And like, it takes time. And you've reminded me, like, it is going to take time to develop that. And I'm very impatient with that. Like, and thankfully I have Marco Polo and Foxer and all these spaces where I'm still able to pull from so many strong relationships over years. But yeah, I think it's still a vulnerable place to step in and say, like, am I accepted? Is this person propelling me towards truth? Is this person willing to stand in the gap for me, whether I'm right or wrong, and be available, but then point me again towards truth? And so that's complicated. And those are friendships that not everybody's willing to even invest in.
Right. And I think part of that is, this whole being able to test the quality of ourselves. Like, I do think that when I moved to North Carolina, there were things about being exposed that made me want to throw off the things that hinder, the things in my own life, and the things that I realized I can't add that into my world right now. From somebody, it helped me to really delineate what those things are, and being able to, in my own heart, be able to say, what are the things that is truly me? It made me hold on to those a little bit more and step into those. I had to really pray through, step into those things even more strongly and stand on those things. The things like, what does honesty look like? What does it look like to be a peacemaker? What does it look like to serve? How do I, and those kind of things that are really qualities of a good friend, but also a good Christian, and in a world that can be very confusing at this point. And And I
I
think
think
that was
that leads into yours blog post on Rejoices in Truth, because my favorite part of your blog post, there's so many good things in there, but my favorite part was the list of questions you gave of does my public life match my inner life, my private life, and does my public life so much to avoid doing the work of the inner life. And I think the two things are hand in hand, because until you have this relationship with yourself, which you had talked about, that quote, until you have that relationship with yourself, you know who you are congruent publicly and privately as the same person. Until you do those kinds of things, stepping into searching for those kinds of friendships is not valid.
right. It's a waste. It's a waste of our time, really, because then we kind of get ourselves trapped into this. It's like middle school. We get trapped into, okay, well, I showed up like with all the cool stuff. I showed up with the fashion and this and that, and let my friends really choose me
Yeah.
instead of me choosing that and being. But then how do you change? How do you go
Right.
back to who you really want to be if who you presented yourself was somebody that you're not?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, the trap is that divide between I just keep my public life public and good in order to not have to deal with my inner life, because the inner work is the part that is the most, it stresses me out. I'm just gonna be honest, because I just sit there and I think I like, what a wretch I am, you know what I'm saying, like this. And so the hard work, it takes so much time, and we're not always willing to give of our time. And society doesn't place, I mean, we place a high price on productivity and what can you give me, what can you sell me, what is in it for me, instead of going, who are you as a person? Because I can work with somebody who's got the qualities and the values and who knows themselves far better than I could with somebody who is pretending to be something, and then one day, I mean, it all just washes away.
Yes.
You can't deal with that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And somebody who shows up knowing their flaws, so you don't have to surprise them when you're like, hey, is this a blind spot? And granted, we all have blind spots, right? We all
We
have
all do.
things
Yeah.
that are blind. But somebody who shows up and is like, I know that this, and this I am not good at, I will fail you on, but I will keep working at it. There's so much grace in that.
Yeah.
Than showing up saying, I've got this figured out. I've got this all figured out. And then you're saying, I don't know how to be friends with somebody who thinks they've got it figured out, who thinks they've arrived, but there's big holes of lack of judgment or of, I don't know, inconsistencies is what they claim and who they are.
Right. And I think it is true. I've heard several pastors say this, but that whole, like, the voice that you hear the most in your head is yours. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the voice that you hear. And so what you think and perceive of yourself, the things that you are, who you really are will eventually come out. Like, no matter where you are, there you are, right? Like, yeah. I'm here, I can't really get away from me. And that's the problem, is we keep trying to do that. And we end up forfeiting things like being able to step in to, these places and times where we are more exposed and feeling more exposed, mm-hmm. obviously under God's care and protection at all times. But the more that we're able to know who we are, stand in those things, the more that God uses these moments to kind of hone those things and make them more clear to even ourselves, mm-hmm. the clearer our voices get in our own heads.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that makes those friendships even more worth it.
Yes. And because you've walked this journey with me, I didn't know that I didn't know the voice in my head. As we have become friends, it took me slowing down enough to listen to the voice and respond appropriately of, oh, I'm sad. That voice is sad. It needs me to process what that emotion is. All of those things, the inner workings of my own life, is not something that I understood. It's been a journey for me. So my encouragement would be to anybody that's listening is, if this feels foreign, you can step into it. Because for me, it was not something that I felt I understood or grew up understanding. And so as we process, I would say things like, I don't even have the words for that, or I don't even know how to step into that conversation, or I don't know what I feel about that. And it was through our conversations and friendship that I started to do the hard work of understanding what my inner life was and how to transform it and how to make it more Christ-like. But I just did the productivity and did the work without the reflection of, but who am I inside that makes this possible?
Right. And God works through, I mean, both ways. Because I do think the way that introverts and extroverts and the way our personalities and what we've been given, I do think that that informs how we end up listening to and talking to ourselves. I do think it has that influence, but being able to appreciate other people, like, I mean, you know, you were sitting in a Michigan chair, like we're Notre Dame people. We don't talk to, you know, but being able to say, you know, I'm in this place of new exposure. What can I learn from somebody who's completely and totally different than me? I mean, you know what I'm saying? And that requires a lot of knowing who you are. It requires a lot of knowing what the voice is in your head and what it's saying, because God works through that. He is loving, and therefore he protects us in these exposed spaces when we're working it all out and trying to form new community and friends. And at the same time, he's working also on that inner place where that we rejoice in this integrity, this through and through. And so he supports that process at whatever point we start it, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of hope there.
Yes. So much hope. So much hope. I'm so glad that you guys have joined us and walked with us. We have one final week left in 1 Corinthians as we kind of wrap up the characteristics of love. So please don't miss it next week when we jump back on. But thanks for joining us today at the Fronchard. Bye.